morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It is Wednesday. As always, we're brought to you by Reckless Coffee Roasters, which is in the mug as the number one greatest dad because it is one day. Number two is not here but filling in for number two is Gally. We get a glimpse of Gally in daylight. What's happening?
The scary world getting me up this time of day, and who the bleep understands or knows what kind of shit is going to come out of this mouth.
Well, it'll be par for the course for our morning show. And as always, part of the Wednesday crew, John is here. What's going on?
Yeah, happy to be here with a mix of the Monday night podcast, Wednesday morning, mix up, kind of hybrid. I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it.
Honestly, the funny thing is, not a lot is changing on the Liverpool side of things, but we will start with a couple of headlines or tweets or whatever you want to call it from that side of things. And
before we do, Tim, has anyone seen Arne Slot?
No.
Has anyone seen him send out an APB? Where is my guy? Where is the new Liverpool manager? It's been almost 2 weeks since he's formally been announced as Liverpool's official manager, and we haven't heard a hi or hello from the guy at least. So I ran into this article this morning about Ryan Gravenberch's dad talking about how he's improved under Klopp, and he himself has said, no, we haven't heard anything from Arne. I was like, hold on a minute. It's been almost 2 weeks now, right?
It is odd. I think it's almost looks intentional at this point. It's not a matter of, we kind of talked about it on the Monday podcast too. It kind of looks intentional, and they're like, you guys will know when we tell you, kind of a mode we're in. The good news is we do have Kim from the Netherlands Sporter Club on tomorrow. So we'll be recording a podcast with him tomorrow. So at least we'll get some background information from a fan standpoint, which I really want to hear about. Not only, the Feyenoord fans, but how he's viewed overall in Netherlands and stuff like that. What the Dutch fans think of him overall, what the opposing things think of him overall, and what we should expect for press conferences and stuff like that. Because I've seen a couple of things, but you know how it is when they show the highlights of somebody's it's like watching a player's YouTube clip. You get the best moments of him and stuff like that. I do want to see how he handles certain things. Okay. Rumorville is in full effect, Gally. Gomez, Vincent Kompany, is in shock of getting the Bayern job. So now he's let me do some other crazy stuff. And he is supposedly interested in Gomez. Liverpool says beat it, or expected to say beat it. I'm really happy for Gomez that he is actually being sought after and getting what he deserves, really. I think he's been a great servant to the club and stuff. But I'm assuming, Gally, especially with the shortage we have in center backs, there's no way in hell we're moving Gomez.
I'm not so sure about that because I think Gomez wants a move.
Right.
And I don't even think that's questioned. He made it clear last season. Last season's playing time wasn't enough. And he made that comment at the end of the season because he expects to be playing as a center back. I actually don't think that Gareth Southgate has him in the England setup as a potential center back. I know Kazi was I think Gomez is going to start. I think Gomez is fourth or fifth choice right now for the England center backs. And I think if Harry Maguire was fit, Gomez might not even have made the plane. And I think that's because he doesn't get enough time playing at his preferred position. And I'm not sure that'll change. And again, it'd be nice if we knew what the manager thought or how he thought of the players. I think the summer makes a big deal. But I think if a club like Bayern Munich has any interest in Joe Gomez, he will push to get that move done. And I think Edwards will be respectful to help him facilitate that. We're not facilitating a move to Crystal Palace for him. If Bayern Munich comes calling, I think Edwards and company have to be careful. After the Sepp news comes out, you're hearing similar things quietly out of the Carvalho camp that the price tags they're setting are so unrealistic that it's hurting their ability for their players. And I think if you're going to sign young players, you don't want it to be tagged that you put such high valuations on them that you don't allow them to see their career go forward. I don't think that's a good look, especially for a guy who's been the longest serving.
I would love to talk to Gomez and see what his preferred position is at this point. I wonder if he's like, hey man, this right back thing is actually pretty cool kind of a thing, because he has done well as a right back and a left back, and I guess gives him like versatility. I don't know if he is, even considering himself to be that. And I would think, John, a lot more interest is natural for him because everybody saw how versatile he is. I mean, we kind of knew, right? He's done but we only knew him as like right back and stuff. Heck, he freaking played defensive midfielder. He played left back, and defensive midfielder was a little shaky, but that's probably the hardest to adjust to.
Yeah.
And he's done well. I mean, I personally think because he's homegrown and because of the shortage we already have at center back and his versatility, unless something crazy is being sent by Bayern, which is not beyond Bayern, I would think we would hang on to him. Where are you at?
Yeah, I feel like common sense is that we need that player like that Milner, Endo-ish kind of player who we could just plug in somewhere and then expect a solid 7 out of 10, which is essentially what Gomez was last year because of injuries. The problem is, as kind of piggybacking off what Gally said, I don't think that's what Gomez sees himself as. He sees himself still as a starting caliber, center back, whether that's for Liverpool or for a team like Aston Villa or someone, that's a different question. It's a different conversation. So it's kind of going to be interesting to see how Arnie is going to be using him next year, because I feel like the fact that, obviously he was kind of like last year, even though he kind of got a lot of looks in, it still wasn't ideal because he was being shifted all over the place. The problem is he put in a good enough shift where people are going to be like, oh, okay, this is how to best utilize him. Right. Yeah. So that kind of might be a curse on his end where you can't exactly have a 1000% fixed position. Like he would prefer like a center back or so. So I feel like, it's both a blessing and a curse what happened to him last year. And the thing is, for me, if he was to be moving to Bayern, like he wouldn't be a starting center back there either. He wouldn't be getting over the likes of, Pamecano and I believe they got Matthias Delight as well. So like
they have him. They just bought Kim from Napoli.
Right. They just bought Kim as well. So no, sorry.
They transfer listed both Delight and Upamecano. They're making it very clear. They have a clear out happening, I think, because I don't think they were very happy with, and Sule as well. So they actually have a need, and Eric Dyer's made it clear that he would like to re-sign, but he is getting a lot of offers from England, as you can imagine, as a homegrown player who has proven himself to be a third or fourth center back. I know Kazi was all excited about signing Eric Dyer on a free. I thought that was an interesting one.
Yeah, 4 years ago, I would be okay with that, to be honest with you. Yeah,
I would be too, but I thought it was comical hearing Kazi talk about FSG signing a retread English player on a free transfer as being like an awesome move, because 4 years ago we would have lit that move up and lit it on fire for an entire hour here. I love the idea of a player like that, but I think Bayern has a big requirement at the back, and they may lose Alphonso Davies. So to your point, Timuchin, maybe we have 3 different spots that you could fight for to start, and you're still playing at a top club in a top league, and you're going to get looks by your international manager, or you can fight with all the other people to get a shot at the new regime at Liverpool. Maybe that is something that makes Gomez say,
is it a lot different, though, to be fair? I mean, if he's fighting over there, you're fighting over here. Why make it change? I mean, I know what John is saying there. Why make a big change unless he definitely has been told that he's like, and then, here's another thing. Like, that's what I was going to ask you, Gally, is, we talked about this with Gakpo, where sometimes the versatility kind of like bites you in the ass because you're used here and there, but you're never used where you should be, so you never shine as much as you should. So, I mean, that's, to me, if they say, hey, we see you as a center back and you're going to compete as a center back, I think to Gomez, that would be more of a selling point, knowing that his role has been kind of like clarified for him at Bayern, and he's not going to be like a joker card used all over the place. Assuming he doesn't like that.
I do agree with you, and I don't think he wants that. I have always said a fully fit Joe Gomez, in my opinion, as good as Matip was in periods of time, a fully fit Joe Gomez during the title-winning season is the best I've seen anyone partner Virgil van Dijk during his wonderful 6 or 7 years at the club. So for me, Gomez was on point to becoming England's best center back. The injuries were really brutal for him. I just don't know if this club can go back to making him number one. And I think, or number two even. And I think they're going to try to make it work with Konate. I think you have a nice young talent in Kwanzaa. And I think you go out then and you probably invest in someone who gives you cover for Virgil. And those are the four you go to, I hate the word, but you go to battle with next season. And I think that to me leaves something for Joe Gomez to hear. So I'm third choice right back or potentially second or third choice left back. Again, I don't know that I want to keep doing that. I'm almost 30 years old. And I think that's another big thing. Like, yeah, he's got a contract, but he's also got a contract that makes it so you can recoup an actual fee.
Put a price tag on him.
I think $25 to $30 million is about what you get, especially if he goes overseas.
See, I feel like that's too low. How about you, John? Because he's English, I think he should get the. I know he's going to Germany, but we are giving away an English homegrown player.
That's and he's got the medals and the history of being a starter for a title-winning team behind his back. You know, to role play for a Champions League winning team. I'd say push for 35 to 40 for him. Honestly,
I think so too. I mean, I would think anything like, because not only that, I'm looking at replacement cost, like for Liverpool, like to be able to replace him, unless we know Edwards, he already has somebody lined up. So then I can see Galley's scenario where they go get 25, 30 for him because they already had their mind up on a 10, 12 million guy over here or something like that. I think the homegrown player thing, especially, you know, we're talking a lot about like Kelleher moving on and stuff like that. That's something to kind of consider because we got to fill those spots one way or the other. You know, Football Flashback has problems when he's putting yes.
Just to throw your money in the trash. It's the same thing. Football Flashback. Come on.
I think the odds were amazing, but there's a reason why those are amazing. So it just says there's nothing wrong with being a reliable, versatile player.
Not.
I mean, I don't think a professional player likes that, though. I mean, I would want to. This is not like, you know, our work where you kind of like show up. You're like, I like it. Every day is different, kind of a thing.
Right.
It's like more about this is your career and expertise. If you're like expertise is in management and I put you in the production line, you're not going to be too thrilled and be like, I'm really versatile. They're using me over here now, kind of a thing. You want to do, Gally, what you feel like, you know, you're good at. And that's what I mean. I don't know what Gomez even considers him to be right now. Like, did he like playing that right back, left back? Because, you know, we've seen conversations about like Milner has spoken about, you know, going to left back and why he did and stuff like that. I mean, that conversation with Klopp. I'm assuming a similar conversation has happened with Gomez. And I don't know if he was like taking it just to be on the team or he was taking it because just to get minutes, or maybe he does fancy it.
You know, I can only go by what he made the comment at the end of the season that he didn't see himself as a fullback. He appreciated all the minutes this year, but that he wants to get back to playing center back and that he still sees himself as a viable top level center back at a big club. And he thinks he should be competing for that job. Jurgen Klopp, who loves his players, wouldn't even give him a sniff at center back all season long. And maybe that was out of need. But again, we talked about it. There were times where we had 5 fit fullbacks. And yes, Joe Gomez was getting to play, but then there would be people complaining it wasn't Robertson, it wasn't Bradley, it wasn't Trent. And who knows, maybe, you know, Arne is going to speak someday and move Trent into midfield like Gareth Southgate and be like, Trent is a midfielder at this club now. I need Joe Gomez as my starting right back, and Bradley is the understudy. Maybe then I could see him saying, all right, I'll give this a couple of years. But to all the comments, that 5-year contract also included $125,000 a week salary. Mm-hmm. So by moving out from under that, the club is also alleviating $20 million in wages. So that gets figured into the fee. that the new club is taking on as well. So that's where I came up with the 25 to 30 million, because I think they're taking 25 to 30 to spend, and they're taking 5 million a year for the next 4 years off of the wage bill, which to a club like Liverpool, I think that's when they weigh them, which is why I think we always ask for so much for our young players, because they're on such small wages. It's not really impacting the bottom line at the club when we're selling. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with a few of those kind of mid-tier earners, because I think Edwards has decisions, right? Like, do I give Jones a 40% pay increase because he's earned it and he's getting older? Or do I look to sell him to Crystal Palace for a higher fee now while he doesn't come with a £130,000 a week contract that they can't afford? So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Gomez. I don't think Bayern is a legit option. I think John's call of something like Aston Villa being in the Champions League might make more sense, if they can sell enough players by the 30th of June.
I was going to say, that's the thing. Aston Villa have their own problems with finances, so I don't know if they're going to be able to afford, and goes back to what we were saying about, if we sell them, it's one thing to sell them to Bayern, another to kind of sell them in the Premier League. And I guess this is a decent point here. Like, Gomez did get into the England squad playing his current role, but then again, he could be like, see, if I got more minutes, I'd be a regular too. So you can look at that, I think, both ways. But sticking with your conversation, John, and Bradley scores 2 in 7 minutes. Mind you, it is against Andorra, but he did play a more advanced role. Mind you, it is against Andorra. So what do you make of that? Because, we talked about the whole, like Trent's midfield thing a couple of days ago. Do these options make it a lot more viable that we do have a replacement in some ways who can play right back, both in Bradley and Gomez?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm surprised you're asking me this, Tim, of what I've been championing for the last 12 months in terms of Trent being a 6 or an 8, a right-sided 8. Like wherever Trent's going to be next year in terms of who we have. Let's assume Gomez stays, plays right back, right? Really good there last season, at least a 7 out of 10. Bradley, for all the time that he's missed through injury, when he played, he was at least an 8 out of 10. And the thing is, he doesn't, the stuff that we get from Trent, the offensive side of the ball, we don't lose too much of that with Bradley, and he actually gets back on defense. So the thing with him is, it's just the perfect player to have in that position under Jurgen Klopp. And if we're going to be assuming that Arnie plays, somewhat of a similar style that's less free flowing, and again, I'm just going by, by logic here, but what I've seen through articles that I've read and everything about how Arnie is going to play, Bradley seems like the option at right back going forward, because he doesn't give you too much of the defensive lapses that Trent gives you, and you don't necessarily lose all the offensive stuff that Trent gives you on that side of the pitch with him, and he's still very young. So I feel like, the fact that, like you said, it's just against a weak country, sure. But then we've seen him against Chelsea. We've seen in the League Cup final. We've seen him against Chelsea at home, where he's bombarded forward, provided crosses and all that. So he's already proven it at the highest level. It's just a matter of him, kind of capitalizing on that momentum and making sure that he just continues to take the next steps, I feel. So yeah, easy for me. Bradley is our starting right back next year. Trent is... Where Trent would be is an entire show in and of itself.
Right? We'll bring on Arnie tomorrow as well, and we'll ask him. I know where I stand with Bradley, I'll be honest with you. I just still feel like, Gally, it's a little too early. We did see a decent sample size of him, right? It's not like just those kids who showed up for the final. We did see a more extended sample size from him. But I still worry if he's going to be ready for playing 90 minutes as a right back. I don't think he ever played full 90 minutes that I can remember. Most of the time he was taken off because I think physically, and I was just watching something the other day, like where Trent is young as hell. It's like, holy cow, he's developed into like actually has become a man now body-wise and stuff like that. I just don't know, unless Gomez is staying as well and you're kind of like thinking of him as a duo over there filling in at right back. Are you sold as like John is over here, as a permanent right back. We're sets, Bradley.
No, and to be honest, I think we've heard this. We've been down this road. We've seen this ditty, and I'm not trying to compare, John Flanagan and Andre Wisdom to the talent that is Connor Bradley. But both of them had flashes where people were like, see what we have here? There's this alternate player. We can do this with these players. And then all of a sudden there was all this clamoring that John Flanagan has to start at, fullback for Liverpool. And, Luis Enrique is dead and this guy's no good. And, and that, to me, I just think we get ahead of ourselves. I think we also have like some real revisionist history, because Bradley had some amazing moments, and the game against Chelsea was great. He also had some matches where he looked out of sorts, picked up an early yellow card for kind of those poor schoolboy challenges. And to your point, Tanuchin, I think that had a lot to do with why he couldn't play 90 minutes. I don't think Klopp ever once believed he would see a full 90 minutes on a pitch if he let him play against grown men and he kept diving in at him. I remember one of the matches, he turned the ball over in like the attacking third, and then he dove in to win it back and picked up a yellow like 90 yards up the field, and we were like 4 minutes into the Arsenal match, and you're like, and that's why a 19-year-old kid is probably a little out of his depth. Personally, I don't think Arne Slot is going to be tying the wagon down to defensively becoming more stable by starting Kwanzaa and/or Bradley in his best 11 to feature at the beginning of the season. I think he's going to try to create some stability and veteran leadership. And let's be honest, we've said this before. If you're not getting the world-class wizardry out of Trent at right back, you really have to change a lot of the tactics, because we build everything through our play from that right-hand side. And I don't know that you get the same level of artistry if he's in midfield. And I think we all saw what it looked like when we asked Thiago to work too hard in midfield. It looked a little lackluster at times defending. And I don't want to marginalize Trent because he's not Thiago, like as good as he is on the ball. And I just think that's what we're recreating if we start trying to slot him in to our midfield, because I don't know Trent fits what that midfield is. Granted, it'd be nice if the manager told me what he expected out of a midfielder. Then we can figure out and take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, this does depend a lot, John, on in terms of like how we're going to play, right? But I guess my biggest concern with, as the entire chat is just moving everybody forward and nobody's playing defense. Jesus Christ, good thing you guys were not my manager when I was playing center back, pushing everybody up top. Somebody has to stay freaking back over here on the right side. But I guess my bigger concern is, I mean, we kind of like talked about this. Actually, like a clip of it just came out, I think, yesterday. In terms of, I still feel you lose a lot of his vision and like long passing when you push him up the field. And not only that, there's a huge difference, I can tell you, as a guy who always faced forwards with the ball in my foot, as opposed to receiving the ball with your back to the goal, where you have to turn with the ball and stuff like that constantly and not be able to then distribute the ball as well and stuff. You're not buying that. You feel like he will not struggle with that at all in middle of the pitch, receiving the ball and having to turn with it, as opposed to what he does now. Like he kind of comes to the ball as an inverted right back, or he's already on the ball and he's looking and he sees the whole pitch and he can.
Ooh, we lost Tim for a second there. Well, I think he was going, I think in terms of what he was asking me, I think he was kind of going leading with the fact that what do I feel about Trent kind of being in that, let's say, double pivot role, receiving the ball. It's a totally different position to when, he's getting it as a right back, seeing everything on the pitch. To answer, my answer was going to be something toward the lines of, I feel like it's about natural talent, Gally, in terms of like Trent being too talented, I feel, to be categorically restricted to a position. Obviously, a lot of people are going to disagree with me. You might as well, but I feel like there he is. Sorry, Tim. I was kind of paraphrasing your question, but I feel like it was along the lines of how do I feel, in terms of Trent receiving his touches at a different kind of spectrum and
I
stuff.
was doing that, and then Trent unplugged something over here, so it was like, dude, what the fuck? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was saying that I feel like it comes down to natural talent. I feel like Trent is a talented enough footballer that wherever you put him, whether that's the 6 or an 8 or as a 10, he adjusts well enough for it to maximize his game. Where, obviously the next step last year was him moving into that inverted right back position where we saw him kind of be more central. And obviously it didn't necessarily translate into him, recording more assists, but it did translate to him recording more goals, right? And it did translate to him recording more hockey assists, like the pass that leads to the assist and kind of deal like that. And that, for me, that's my interpretation of that, is him adjusting his overall game to fit the role better, which is why I'm really confident if we move him to a 6 or move him to an 8 or move him to a 10, offensively at least, he's going to be maximizing his game to the best of its ability for us, at least moving forward. And, we add the bonus to the fact that you're going to be counting on him less to be defending those one-on-one situations on the flank. So there's kind of less risk there. Obviously, he still has to defend, but the fact that he's not the last line is my argument, kind of makes it easier to cover up for any silly mistake that he's going to be giving. That's been my argument for the moving him forward.
Once again, I'm glad you're not my manager, because I feel like, that's worse for a midfield player, because what will happen? People see it less now. I mean, I don't know. I guess this is my biggest beef, Gally. Everybody is always like, well, that's how we play. That's not how we play. We don't play where we tell the right back, whenever there's a give and go, just let your guy go, kind of a thing. That's not how we defend. My problem has been usually when he's back there defending a simple give and go, he doesn't track his guy and stuff like that. I feel like when you put him in midfield, I know what John is saying. He's not going to be the last guy. So you know what's going to happen? Everybody's going to blame Bradley for it, because he's going to, even though it's only because Bradley has 2 guys to cover now, suddenly it's going to be like, what is Bradley doing over there? The other guy is wide open and stuff. That's, I guess, my bigger concern of moving him to midfield.
So, sorry, before Gally goes, isn't there going to be a bigger chance of them sweeping up and cleaning it up better, knowing that, hey, you guys see that they got past Trent, so we could react quicker? Whereas if he was the last line, you kind of don't have the window anymore to react. Let's say a Van Dijk or a Konate rushes over to cover. There's less luxury of that when Trent was playing right back. Whereas if he lets a guy go for midfield, you're like, oh, okay, he let go, so I'll position myself here.
So who's saying this?
The back line. Because there's
still. So what is he doing with the striker? Here's my concern: if the midfielder is coming at you, right, you have to make a decision. If your midfielder decided, you know what, I ain't feeling like tracking back, you have to make a decision as a defender. Do I push it, like step up to the guy, maybe trap the other guy offside, or what? But now I'm outnumbered, because
my whole deal with that is our midfield let a lot of guys through last year as well, and we managed to sweep up relatively quicker than, let's say, if Trent gets beat on the right and a one-on-one on the right side. Just
what do you think, Gally? John is a center back's nightmare over here.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would not want to be a flank defender playing in John's setup, because it sounds like basically 9 people go forward and 2 center backs just hold on to their stones literally and pray. I think that Trent at times last year, we talked about this, and I thought at times Trent was getting stick, and we would talk about this, like Soboslai would shut off when he was playing the right midfield position, wouldn't track runners back, and then Trent would make the bad decision of which of the 2 to go to, usually the wrong decision, and what he would ultimately do is he would leave Konate to cover 3 people now.
Yeah.
And then we would all get on Konate, and then he gets out of form, and we wonder how he loses his job to an 18-year-old kid. Right? Like, I think there was part of that in it. My thing is, John talks about, the skill sets it takes of receiving the ball with your back to, your attacking goal. I think we've seen how Trent receives the ball at times early this year, because he had some horrific turnovers in extremely tough spots when Virgil and Allison and people were feeding him the ball with his back to our own goal in defense, and he was getting picked off and the ball taken off of him. I think Trent is best when he can use his vision and create moving forward. And the only position on the field that allows Trent to 90% of the time be facing the attacking end is for him to play in a wide position of the defense, whether it's a wing back. Like, there's really part of me that thinks the best Slot can probably do is figure out a way to either play 3 at the back or play 3 at the back in possession. So you're almost taking the city, you're taking what Klopp was doing and multiplying it further on steroids, really. You're asking Robertson maybe not to go as forward as much. Or maybe, to your point, you're asking Gomez to stay and be your starting left back. Yeah. So in possession, you're playing a back 3. But out of possession, you're still in, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of feel like that might be best for both getting Trent into attacking areas, but not moving him full-time into midfield, because I just don't see that working as Trent being part of a midfield 4. I just think that you'll have defensive lapses, and once again, goals will be scored, our defense will look leaky, and we'll do what we always do, we'll blame Trent.
Yeah, I mean, a 3-4-3 where you kind of like, push one up or not push the one down or the 4. I mean, to be honest, John, I would think of 4 people, you'd be rooting against Trent not coming into midfield, because that puts your boy Gravy even further down the pecking order. And that's what I was going to ask you. When if you're pushing him up top to midfield, where you seem to have several guys that maybe you should utilize more and you can't, like an Elliott, like your boy Gravy and stuff like that. And obviously you have like McAllister there, and you're going to have, and we're talking about getting a defensive midfielder. Aren't you creating a bigger problem where you didn't have, where you're going to get even less minutes for your boy Gravy?
Yeah, well, I'm just being semi-realistic here, because I feel like if there is going to be a positional shift, it's either Trent plays right back or he plays as the 6. Where I really want Trent to be is the 10, right? And we talked about this last time, where I feel like the defensive responsibility or lack thereof that a 10 doesn't do, right, is just perfect for him. But obviously he's not going to be going there, right? I feel like that's the role that he himself would want to play, because all he does is try to create with no defensive responsibility. But to answer your question, Tim, I feel like Trent is that good of a player where even if I had to sacrifice my boy Gravenberg or whatever, it's about the team winning. And, we still have our best chance, whether Trent's playing 6 or right back. Our best results came through the years with Trent playing. So that's too much to ignore.
Oh, I thought you were going to finish the sentence as when Trent's playing right back, but you kind of twisted.
Hey, listen, it's Arnie's responsibility to maximize Trent, whether that's in midfield or whether that's in right back. I totally get, I guess, the argument for either position, right? So I feel like he can't personally, right? Obviously, it's different for others, but he can't go wrong where he puts him. But then it's about putting your best players on the floor at any given time. So as much as I want Gravenberg to be playing every single game, because I feel like we have an absolute player in there, if it's between him and Trent, I'm sorry, he's a sniffing bench.
I mean, Slot said it himself. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say shit. But it would be nice, yes, if he came out and said something. But I mean, I guess we're gonna more find. I'm sure. I mean, we talked about this on Monday as well, Gally. There's probably a lot of talks and planning going on behind the scenes. They're enjoying this quiet while we're like, how come nobody's talking? They're probably in the background scheming. But Slot lookalike, smaller, thinner version, is sticking around at United. We actually just talked about this, I think, on Monday, where there were rumors that were still kind of iffy and stuff like that. And I was talking about how bad optics it was. What do you make of that, Gally? I mean, I personally think it's the right decision for them, because it's not the manager that's really the problem over there. But I know a lot of United fans are just not happy, because not only because of his management, but the people he's brought in has not panned out. So they're afraid to rely on him. I know the people above him has changed, but they're still afraid to give him the reins of bringing his own players, because most of the guys he brought in have not really been successful either.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think there is something to it. I think when it comes to Ten Hag, I want to see what that contract extension looks like. If they tack 1 year on or something like that, they could fire him. I mean, I know Sparky Parky on one of our posts was like, he'll be fired, or in Discord maybe, he basically was like, yeah, and then he'll be fired 15 minutes after the Euros when they announced Southgate. And there are a lot of people that believe Southgate wants that job and has angled for that job. If I were Ten Hag, I'd be disappointed this morning, to be honest, because I have to stay working here until they relieve me of my duties. I think I would have liked to take that bag of cash, because I think he would have taken a job in the Premier League and tried to prove that he's a good manager and knows how to manage and can make it. Mm-hmm. And that these buffoons were the ones that hurt him. And then the stories come out. Now it's like he's got to stay. He's got a squad that isn't balanced and isn't anywhere close to competing. And they can't exactly expand. So they were going to hire Ipswich Town's manager to replace him, except the Ipswich Town manager took his name out of the running for Manchester fucking United. If that doesn't tell you how the freaking mighty have fallen, I think he's in the job out of default because they didn't want to pay another manager a big bag of cash. And I don't think they wanted the pressure to hire Pochettino because they know Pochettino would take the job. He's made it clear. I think once before that they were asked, who are your idols in managing? And he said, Sir Alex Ferguson, and Sir Alex Ferguson. Like that was a direct quote when he was at Espanyol and he was doing his badges. So he wants that job. He would take that job. Mm-hmm. I think some of the supporters want him to get that job. And I think for that, they're like, we'll stick it out with this guy. I bet he's gone before December.
I mean, I agree. I think it's just more of a, Ryan says, can United do better than him right now? And I'm not saying because he's better. I don't think he is. But, if there were no Euros, do you think, this would not even be a thing? Because they would probably go after Southgate and get Southgate and move on. It's just a matter of we talked about it on Monday. Like, it's kind of like in a panic mode. They're like, who is available? How about him? Damn it, he's still in the Euros. He's in Euros too. And they didn't want to wait around because that's another month with no leadership.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about parallels right now, and I feel like if you follow the NBA as well, Gally, it's like United is kind of like the Lakers' job right now, where no one wants to come in because no matter how good you are of a coach, when shit goes down, you're the one who's going to be taking the fall, not the management. Rarely the players. The players do a little bit, but not as much as the coach. And I feel like Ten Hag, everyone was like, oh dear, like he's signing an extension. I bet Ten Hag himself was like, oh dear, I'm signing an extension, right? Like he could have gone, the kind of right off into the sunset route, winning the FA Cup after a disastrous stint and go like, you know what? I tried everything here. I still got us 2 trophies. It's a really tough job. Let me just take my name out of here and just ride off into the sunset. But now he's just going to be in another position where it's just, more pressure, more scrutiny. And I agree with Gally. Probably by December, he's probably going to be gone because an FA Cup where you beat, a city that couldn't be asked to play doesn't paper over the fact that your team, which is a top 7, top 8 team, mind you, allowed the most shots in Premier League, in one of the most shots in Premier League history, conceded the most goals in Manchester United history. So one noteworthy win in a sample size of a whole season where your team, played historically bad, it doesn't cover the cracks enough. So it's just not sustainable. It's not a good decision, I feel.
I mean, they literally finished. I was just checking that. They literally finished with like a negative goal difference.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It was like -1. At the same time, I mean, I guess it's one of these where normally you would say consistency is better. Yeah, because, the issues are not just definitely the manager. There are other issues over there. So getting a new manager is probably just going through the same things. Similar to kind of like Chelsea, right? You can just put a manager in there, but if the other systems are jacked up, the result is still going to be jacked up. But at the same time, he clearly has a lot of existing issues with certain players. There's always leaks and stuff like that going into the press. Do you think, I'm assuming just if they came out right after the season and did the extension, I would take it as, they're going to clean the house a little bit too, and they're going to give him the support he needs. But since they're not Is that Ten Hag barking in the background? But it's Arnie. But or is it
clearly he finally showed up. He's coming for the presser.
but the fact that it kind of dragged on like this and they did not announce it until they had to. Do you think it's one of those deals where it's going to be the drama is going to continue? Because the club has clearly shown that they don't give him full support because it took weeks to announce this and to do this.
Yeah. I don't think this does anything. Maybe I think someone in the chat mentioned maybe they want to know who the player manager might be when they sign players. And nobody's signing with Manchester United or Real Madrid or these clubs who turn over managers every 2-3 years with the expectation that the manager will be there for the entire length of their contract, right? That's not going to happen. Like with Klopp, you could be confident if Klopp said, I plan to be here for 4 years. Everyone knew FSG wasn't firing Klopp. Even 2 years ago when people were talking about it, he's like, I'd understand if they fired me. And we were all like, ha, 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 ha. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. We've gone to plaid, people. But I don't see it. What I do see is there being more rot. And I think that's where I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe knows this team is 2 to 3 years, 4 to 6 windows away from truly competing at the level of honors they want. And why bring in a manager? Yeah. Why not just let this guy hang himself? Because I'll tell you this right now. I expect if he has a good tournament, Bruno Fernandes to show he is exactly not the captain material and angle for a move out of that club. Because I don't see Bruno Fernandes spending a year playing meaningless games without European football if Bayern Munich's interested, if Barcelona came in interested, even in loan deals. And I think United might actually have to look at what players do we get rid of? They have to learn. We talk about the manager's job is to figure out how to get things out of, Robertson and how to get the best out of Trent and Szoboszlai. Ten Hag needs to figure out if Marcus Rashford is still a living, breathing class player. Ten Hag needs to figure out how to get those 2 young wingers in Diallo and the kid who looks like Eddie Munster, how to get them to the top of the pitch and be more focal. He needs to get consistent play out of Højlund, and they need to get something out of Mason Mount that they paid 45 to 50 million.
Why wouldn't they do that right away then? If he knows, he knew it all along. He knew it all spring. Why wouldn't they do it right after he won the FA Cup? Kind of highlighted as he's a winner,
Because I really think they want it. One, they wanted to prove to their supporters that win wasn't enough to save his job. That there was going to be an actual process and a new way of doing things. They were going to decide as the new structure of the club. I think that's one. And I think number 2, I think they really, really, really wanted to go the Kieran McKenna route and hire a more no-name person from Ipswich and say, hey, this guy was doing it here. He was Jose Mourinho's number 1. He ran the academy. We love this guy, and we're going to build the future. We're going to give him the time and commitment. And I think they tried to convince him to take this job. And when it became clear he wasn't taking it, they then scratched all the retread surfaces and kind of got told, Tuchel was nope, taking a year off. This guy's nope, not interested. All the Italian managers were no thanks. Even Conte was I'd rather go work for that crazy son of a bitch at Napoli than work for you crazy sons of bitches and coach Bruno Fernandes. And I genuinely think their club, their squad, their stadium, they have so much unrest. The best decision for Manchester United was to keep the rot consistent.
Yeah, that's the thing. I agree in terms of keeping him, but I think, like I say, if they could have probably, in the usual United way, I don't think they handle it very well. If they come out right away, at least not make it so obvious, because I think Gally is right, John, that, they were hold that thoughts. They're Ten Hag is on the phone. Put him on hold. We're talking to all these other guys right now, kind of a thing. But they made it almost too obvious that they talked to everybody else, and then finally took the phone call. It's yeah, man, we really want you to stay. And the fans know that. I think it made it even more obvious to the fans that Ten Hag is kind of in some ways set up to fail and is not supported. And with the issues they have, they needed a manager that's everybody hopefully would be getting behind. Did they just miss the boat, or consistency was the only way to go?
Yeah, they just missed the boat. I feel like we talked about it. It's just a matter of there being no one. He's just there by default, and it just makes me more appreciative of how our club runs things. Like, obviously, there's a lot of criticism on the FSG side. They don't spend enough, blah 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 blah. But then I know it would be good for our content. If Liverpool were run like Manchester United, there'd be rants every show, clippable moments, clippable shorts. Get the view up, get those views up, get on the YouTube algorithm better. But then at the end of the day, the fact that we're transitioning seamlessly from a legendary manager to a manager who can make his name here, bring us, keep us at that level is really great. Seeing United fans who just won an FA Cup, mind you, should be a cause for celebration. Like, they've had a horrible season, but they still won the FA Cup, beat the best team in the league. It's still a cause for celebration, but everyone is talking about how much of a bad decision it is, keeping Ten Hag and everything like that. It just goes to show really how bad it is, how bad the rot has set in. So listen, I know 3 United fans. I'm close with them. One is my uncle, the other 2 are my cousins, and I really hate to be in their position right now, honestly. Like, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. I know Gally said that they're like, 4, 5 windows away. I'd argue it's like 6 or 7, honestly, because it's all about establishing a culture at the club. That culture is absolutely crap. Like, the players.
I always say you got to be careful with that, though, because there's some talent there. Like, Lisandro Martinez, for me, has proven that he is a EPL level defender. And when he's on the pitch, they give up like 3/4 of a goal less. He just hasn't stayed fit. If he stays healthy, I think Luke Shaw brings them leadership and has been a good Man United signing after first few rocky seasons. There are pieces there. And I also think, like, we underestimate how good some of that young talent they have coming through between the Manu kid, the Heathen up front. I mean, they have some talent. I think the Diallo kid's going to be a real player for them if they can figure out how to mesh his skill set. So, they'll sell Sancho. We know they're going to buy some players. Like, I think, and they're still Man United. It doesn't take that long to turn it around. It was 3 years ago we said Spurs would be nowhere close. They were close to sniffing Champions League this year. I think Manchester United, with 2-3 right moves and the right manager hire, they're not winning this league. But let's be honest, we almost needed a perfect season and we finished 10 points out of the league.
Yeah.
If the rules don't change with City, nobody's winning this league. Even Arsenal, once again, fell 5 points off by the end of the season. It's really hard to keep that pace all year with a team like City. So, can United get back to – they won a trophy last year and made the quarterfinals of another competition. I don't know. I feel like they're not that far.
United has – I think, like, United is one of those teams that's in a position where I don't think they can turn around and be like, man, look at City doing all this stuff, because God knows United has spent the money. Maybe their spent money is a lot more justified because they have fans and they have a brand compared to City. But it's kind of hard for them to be like, man, if you could only spend more money, we'd be really good. Because I think that's been their problem. They've spent the money in the wrong places. I do agree that they do have some real good players there that can win you games, but you need a system and kind of like some consistency to win the league. And that's why that's a huge leap to take, to be able to do that consistently. Because Rashford can win you a game, Bruno Fernandes can win you a game here and there and stuff like that, but not consistently week in and week out. So that's going to be interesting to see the drama over there. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do in summer, because I know they have to move some players. Will they be bailed out by a couple of clubs in Saudi Arabia or whatever, but they have to move some players, especially if they want to bring some in. Obviously, Sancho is probably the one that's going to bring in the most money, and maybe like Greenwood, because Greenwood is still under their contract. That's when they can sell as well. But it should be interesting. I know my brother is not too thrilled, because he has not been too thrilled with people that Ten Hag has brought in. And I think that's been the biggest criticism. Like, Martinez has been decent, I think, but I don't know. If he was playing for us, we'd be worried. Similar to we are with Konate, right? Is this guy ever going to stay fit? Because he comes 2 weeks, he's gone. He comes 2 weeks. Like, we'd be worried if he was our player. We're like, yeah, he's good, but he's never available is probably what we would say. He's the Thiago of United, if you will. But hopefully Arne will talk soon. So we'll find out a lot more about that. I wouldn't hold your breath, but you can hold your breath where we talk to the Supporters Club in Netherlands and get some more info from them. Otherwise, I will be back Friday morning, but the gang is here tomorrow night. Actually, Thursdays, I think, joining them as Brian is out of town. But the trio should be back tomorrow night, live in action. Did you have something, John? You look like you're about to
No.
Gravenberg bits or something. What do you have?
Nothing. I was gonna suggest that Gravenberg article that I talked about, but then it's too early for that. Too early in the year for that. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel for headlines. Let me tell you, people. Like, I'm surprised we made it to 50 minutes in the show, right?
I got a big feeling. I have this feeling that we're gonna hear from Slot at some point, very quietly, not like a big presser. I think we're going to get like a statement when the guys come back to train, and his comment's going to be, "I will address the whole media and everyone when the Euros have concluded and everyone comes back in." It's gotten so far now. I don't think they will have a big press conference until the international tournaments are over, the qualifying, the Euros, the Copa. I genuinely don't. So unfortunate there for all those that are dying and living by the daily, waiting for their Arn Slot press conference, which basically is just a press conference for the guy speaking a language you can't understand because he's going to sound like a Dutch guy speaking English. But it'll be, I really think that's what we end up seeing. And I'm hopeful there might be a signing or two, but I kind of feel like that might not happen until, and maybe that's part of it. What is he going to do? Say, no, there's been no movement. The club, he doesn't have anything yet to talk about. And I think they're protecting him for that. And I know it sounds silly, but these guys are extremely good at marketing. Whether they say the things the supporters like or not, they're good at saying things that elicit reaction from people. So I don't think they're doing this for any reason other than a business tactical reason that they believe is what's best for the club and for the manager. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, we all want to hear, right? I mean, as fans, but at the end of the day, really, we're not going to hear anything of significance. If you had a press conference, we would probably have one morning show on it because it's going to be very vanilla. We're going to be like, we'll see. We'll talk to the players once they come back, blah, blah, blah. And, we're working behind the scenes. And then a day later, we're going to be like, okay, like we didn't find out anything. So, like I say, I know we all want to hear, but I don't think you're going to hear anything of significance anyway. You're just going to have to hear his voice, just YouTube it. He's all over the place. But I'll try to get some scoop on him overall tomorrow from the Netherlands gang. And then, like I say, tune in tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. Please, please, please go grab somebody by the ear and tell them to follow us, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Hit all the buttons underneath except the one that says thumbs down. And I will see you guys on Friday. Take care.